My name is Ken Davidian, and welcome to Organization Theory in Space. This is season 2, where we cover every chapter in the Oxford Handbook of Organizational Change and Innovation. There are 36 of them. This is the second edition of the handbook, edited by Marshall Scott Poole and Andy Van de Ven. This video covers chapter 8 of the handbook, entitled Eastern Yin-Yang Model of Change. In this video, we'll talk about the Yin-Yang view, covering assumptions, research areas, implications, its strengths, limitations, and opportunities for future research. And finally, I'll provide some conclusions. Here we go. First, there are 4 basic assumptions made in the Yin-Yang model of change. The first is that the Yin-Yang duality drives change, asserting that reality is an ever-changing process between 2 mutually embedded opposites, the yin and the yang. This is called endogenous relatedness. One extreme is always transforming into the other, and there are unclear or fuzzy boundaries between beginnings and endings of each extreme. The second assumption is that momentum drives the timing of these changes. Successfully initiating a change at a time of unfavorable momentum is extremely hard to do. Thirdly, the Yin-Yang view assumes the world is a complex place to be understood or intuited at a high level. This means stepping back to look at problems from a broader perspective. Finally, the Yin-Yang model adopts an ontology of becoming. This is like Hegel's dialectic perspective that sees the world from a process point of view, constantly changing rather than a perspective of being comprised of discrete and well-defined events. As applied to research of organizational change and innovation, the Yin-Yang perspective is apparent in 4 research areas. The first is a belief in continuous change that is deeply embedded in the culture. After all, the Yin-Yang model was originally described in a text called the Book of Changes, written 5,000 years ago. The second research area investigates how momentum drives the change process. Momentum is a powerful force that change agents perceive from the interdependent transforming elements, and this results in 3 potential strategies: seizing an opportunity if the momentum is favorable, in training or waiting for the proper time if momentum is predicted to be favorable in the near future, and creating favorable momentum if it currently is not. The sheer power of momentum relative to leadership agency reminds me of the elephant and rider analogy that Chip and Dan Heath talk about in their book Switch. Momentum is so powerful it cannot be ignored. The third research area involves the concept of paradoxical leadership as the change agent, recognizing that sometimes the best action for the moment is no action. The last research area in the Yin-Yang's mutual transformation as a dialectical form, the concept that one extreme transforms toward the other while maintaining an embedded seed of its opposite that never goes away. This is a bit different from the concept of sublation we encountered in chapter 7 and is better characterized as holistic harmonization rather than a synthesis of 2 different ideas. There are many implications of the Yin-Yang model of change. First is that organizational leaders should coordinate internal actions with the external forces to maximize the chances of successful organizational change. Second, it's more important for leaders to create favorable momentum than take strong actions for change, again, alluding to the elephant and rider metaphor. Third, timing is everything, and it's important to do the right thing at the right time. Finally, the recognition that non-action is as important as action. And this relates to the concepts of negative capability and diligent indolence found elsewhere in the literature. Sometimes it is better to be the flower than the bee, letting the bee come to you rather than always taking action into your own hands and busily buzzing around from flower to flower. Of course, the Yin-Yang model has its strengths and limitations, and these provide opportunities for future research. Regarding its strengths, the Yin-Yang view is a useful framework for explaining complex phenomena from a process research perspective. The Yin-Yang perspective has been criticized because it is susceptible to overinterpretation, called eisegesis, and this is resolvable by employing an engaged scholarship methodology, ensuring that the researcher's own perspectives do not lead the results in a direction that reinforces pre-assumed outcomes. Another criticism is that the Yin-Yang model lacks formal conceptualization and theorization and is highly complex, making it hard to test or falsify as a theory. This particular weakness can be resolved by looking at limited portions of the model and using appropriate research methodologies to hypothesize and test those portions. In conclusion, The Yin-Yang model of change is a top-down approach to organizational systems, starting with complexity, working towards simplification based in the process perspective or the ontology of becoming. It relies on concepts of momentum as an important aspect of strategic planning in open systems and paradoxical leadership, which is the recognition of non-action. Finally, it is different than strict dialecticism and the contradiction perspectives we talked about in Chapter 7, because the process it describes is not synthesis and not sublation, but mutual transformation from one extreme to the other in an endless cycle. Well, that's it for this episode of OT in Space. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And if you did, please consider hitting that subscribe button or the notification bell so you'll be made aware every time a new video is released. Thanks. OT in Space was produced by IRL, which stands for Impossible Research LLC. IRL conducts process research on the topics of innovation and industry emergence within the space sector context. IRL also offers services of organization theory consulting, research consulting, and STEAM outreach. This video is intended for educational purposes only.